I just want to say one word to you. Just one word.
Yes, sir.
Are you listening?
Yes, I am.
Plastics.
Exactly how do you mean?
There's a great future in plastic.
Wherever you turn today, there's pretty sure to be a modern plastic in use somewhere within sight.
These are the unlikely beginnings of the plastics industry as we know it today, in fact. It was kicked off by a Birmingham inventor called Alexander Parks. In 1862, he was responsible for exhibiting for the first time a commercial man-made plastics material.
Celluloid, one of the earliest of plastics, made its way into the manufacture of novelties, but it had one serious defect. It could burn. It was not until 1907, another Roosevelt was then in the White House, that a non-inflammable plastic was invented by Dr. Leo Baekeland, to which he gave the name Bakelite.
The first truly synthetic plastic was invented in New York. By the 1930s, all sorts of new plastics were being created.
Modern plastic didn't really get its start until World War II, when the military realized how versatile it could be.
They're bonded by plastics. This paratrooper floating down to welcome Mother Earth is depending on plastics to get him there safely. His parachute is made of nylon.
If you're old enough to remember the old-fashioned glass windscreens, this is what happened when you banged your nut.
Yeah, huge improvement there. After the war ended, plastic companies needed to find new ways to sell their products.
Today's military weapon becomes tomorrow's peacetime instrument. Plastics will play as large a role in peace as they do in war.
Much as a tree grows by using the elements in air, water, and the soil, so all plastics are made from substances found in nature. In every case, heat, catalysts, and other chemical processes are involved. And dyes or pigments can be added, as well as fillers and plasticizers, to produce materials of just the particular properties we want, in powder form or in rods, tubes, and sheets, or as liquids, to be manufactured into a variety of products. Thus, out of plastic materials are manufactured countless finished products. From the clothing we wear and the buttons on our clothes, to the intricate parts in our communications network, power plants, ships, automobiles, airplanes, and railroads. All these and thousands of other items, small and large, that enrich our way of life, involve the use of plastic materials of one kind or another. And thousands more are constantly being planned and developed.
And so, plastic went from protecting cargo to protecting our leftovers.
Food stored in Baggy's plastic bags always have the sound of freshness.
Here it is, the most amazing food wrap ever developed, Saran Wrap.
That's right. There's nothing like Saran Wrap. It's the crystal clear plastic that lets you see everything you wrap. Just press it into place over any bowl or dish, and it stays. You have a smooth, tight cover that keeps flavor locked in.
Here is the new Band-Aid plastic strip with new Super Stick. It sticks better than any other bandage.
Band-Aid plastic strip. They take better care of little cuts and scratches. They stay put.
Yes, even in hot, soapy dishwater. Neat, fresh-colored, almost invisible. Band-Aid plastic strips with new Super Stick stick better than any other bandage.
Barbie, you're beautiful. You make me feel my Barbie doll is really real.
In a new plastic decorator container.
Put them in a polyethylene plastic bag.
And to brighten up the plastic tree, plastic decorations.
Nowadays, everything can be made in plastic.
My mama done told me
She told me, hun, we're having a party, a Tupperware party. We're gonna have us some fun. We'll get us a gold key. And Mama was right, we sold them that night, my friends, what a sight. They came from everywhere, Orlando to Delaware, to buy it.
Coca-Cola is getting around in big 2-liter plastic bottles these days. That's a lot of Coke and a lot of smiles. These lighter plastic bottles take pounds off your shopping load. And they're strong enough to protect against some of life's hard knocks. Pick up your family's Coke the easy way, in the big 2-liter plastic bottle. And
Being disposable, there are no empties to collect.
Vinyl and asbestos on the floor.
During the 60s, global plastic production increased 400%, and by 1979, we were producing more plastic than steel.
We have science making polymers, making nylon, making rayon, which has a natural starting point but is modified into a polymer, making plexiglass or polyethylene. Those are the structural materials of our civilization. I think polymers are, in that sense, an example of the human creativity of chemistry. There's just nothing more beautiful than them.
It also brought culture to a wider audience. Without plastics, we wouldn't have had film, which really brought theatre in to more people. We wouldn't have had recorded sound. I think that plastics has made for a much more equal world.
tools, plastic pollution.
Tackling the scourge of plastic.
We must reduce the demand for plastic.
Coffee cups.
Plastic bottles.
Plastic chopsticks. Everyone has woken up to the need for action.
And plastic is a monstrous problem.
Are now covered in plastic.
Our attitudes towards plastic.
Ending plastic pollution.
We now have more plastic in the ocean by weight 36 times than the zooplankton.
There's not a place on Earth where plastics aren't washing up on land.
Plastic is in every single element of my day.
Most plastics that we use are single-use, short-time use packaging, and then they're discarded.
We need to cut the spigot of single-use and disposable plastics, which are entering the marine environment every day on a global scale.
Durable, hard-wearing plastics made to last were eclipsed by throwaway, single-use plastics.
We've only been using plastic since the 1950s, and in that relatively short span of time, we have generated the estimated 83 million metric tons of plastic on the planet. That's equivalent to 25,000 Empire State Buildings.
Statistics reaching all the way back to the dawn of plastic mass production, 1950. And if we add it all together, it's 8.3 billion metric tons.
We've produced, since the 1950s, 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic.
Plastic pieces on the ocean surface now outnumber fish life 6 to 1. Plastic makes up almost 90% of all trash floating on the ocean surface. That's 46,000 pieces of plastic per square mile.
And 6.3 billion metric tons is still on the planet and is plastic waste.
Only 9% has been recycled.
One of the common misconceptions in the world of plastic is that there's plastic. Well, actually, there's several different varieties of plastic. You're familiar with recycling symbols. There's 7 of those. So there's no one plastic that will replace all plastic.
We've recycled less than 9% of all the plastic ever produced.
Volumes of the types of plastic that nobody will buy, sitting, waiting for somebody to buy them.
Plastic, even when it is recyclable, and I think people don't understand this, it can only be recycled a certain number of times.
Recycling is not a sustainable solution. It's actually called downcycling because plastic never goes away.
Then it is going to another factory, which is then washing it, grinding it, pelletizing it. Then from there it will go to another company which will make another product. China was buying 50% of all plastic scrap in the world. That continued for, say, 20, 30 years.
2017 year, China stopped accepting other countries' plastic.
Cheap, sterile, and convenient, it changed our lives. But this wonder of technology got a little out of hand. Plastic has saturated our environment. It has invaded the animals we eat, and now it's finding its way into our bodies.
Upon working with the plastic, after about the first 8 years, some of my work started to fissure and break down into smaller little bits of plastic. And I thought, great, it's ephemeral, just like us. Upon educating myself a little further about plastics, I actually realized this was a bad thing.
Plastic, over time, with the heat of the sun, light, oxygen, microbes will break down into smaller and smaller pieces. That may take 10 to 20 years for a plastic bag, upwards of 400 years for a plastic bottle, but over time it'll break up into smaller and smaller pieces to what scientists now call microplastics.
Microplastics are pieces smaller than 5 millimeters.
We divide these into two types. The first, primary microplastics, plastic engineered to be small. Then we have our secondary microplastics, and these are plastics that are created from the breakdown of those larger materials.
It would be pretty bad if microplastics are toxic because they travel up the food chain. Zooplankton eat microplastic. Small fish eat zooplankton. So do oysters, crabs, and predatory fish. And they all land on our plate.
There's something I need to tell you. This relationship isn't working. It isn't good for me. I'm breaking up with you.
It's not me, it's you. I became dependent on you.
We're just no longer compatible. Also, there's one more thing. I met someone else.
Microplastics are everywhere. And as animals eat those plastics, it can have negative effects on them. It can have physical impacts, blockages, abrasions, or chemical impacts, either from the chemicals in the plastics leaching out or chemicals in the environment, contaminants sticking to the plastic themselves.
The single-use plastic straws? Yeah, just right there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don't you know that plastic straws are bad for the environment? What is this? Ugh. If you're gonna suck, suck on this. This is Final Straw, the world's first collapsible, reusable, totally badass straw.
Well, microplastics are everywhere. But there's something that we can do about it almost everywhere we go. And it starts with the good old 3 R's from the 70s that we're familiar with: reduce, reuse, recycle, to add 3 new R's, starting with the first one, refuse. Refuse single-use plastic. If you can't refuse it, reduce it. And if you can't reuse it, of course, recycle it. The second new R, rethink. We live in a society that doesn't place a high value on secondhand goods. We need to change that. We need to focus on services rather than replacement. The final new R, and perhaps the most challenging, which is to redesign. On a broader scale, we need to change our thinking from the linear model of make, take, and dispose to one that's more circular in nature.
What is the #1 thing plastic is made out of? Well, every year, we use 17 million barrels of oil to make plastic water bottles. This is enough to fuel 1 million cars every year.
But we can't and we shouldn't continue to use it and produce it on the increasing trajectory that we are currently on.
The majority of plastics that we use now are from petroleum. And by majority, I mean more than 90%, maybe more than 95%.
Plastic is a valuable product. We are reliant on it, and a future without it is completely unrealistic.
We're not going to get rid of plastics anytime soon, so we better deal with them in a more intelligent way from where they come from and also where they go after we're done using them.
We have to develop new, environmentally friendly materials that can replace petroleum-based plastics, and we have to find a way to clean up the plastics we've already discarded.
50 years from now, what will happen is people will be digging out landfills and taking out product to recycle, and they will think we're crazy people of dumping things in landfills.
We're still consuming plastic at a breakneck pace, even though we can literally see the toll it takes on our environment and wildlife. So far, some 700 species of marine animals have been reported to have eaten or been entangled in plastic. And scientists estimate that by 2050, virtually every seabird species on the planet will be eating it. Currently, only about 1/5 of all plastics gets recycled. But it's going to take more than recycling to fix our plastic problem. We need to stop using so much of it in the first place. If we want to save our world and ourselves, we have to stop talking about recycling so much. We need businesses, we need governments, we need individuals to change the way that we do things. We have to decide: planet or plastic?
We cannot imagine life without plastics, but we cannot continue to lead our life the way we are. It's not like, oh, let's use this planet Earth, then we will move to another planet. This is what we have. We need to take care of this.